Zelensky seems to have a knack for stirring up anti-Russia sentiments, but one has to question Ukraine's strategy of provoking Russia, including attacks on Russian civilians, especially when Ukraine itself is struggling to keep things afloat. Reports of Ukrainian forces facing staggering casualties in the six-figure numbers are making even the most enthusiastic would-be recruits think twice about joining the fray. Ukraine's chronic manpower shortages paint a grim picture in the face of Russia's formidable military capabilities. Perhaps it's time for Ukraine to reconsider its reliance on NATO and the EU, who might not stick around when Russia inevitably decides to flex its muscles and go on the offensive against Ukraine and its allies.
Welcome to TFI Global, the antidote to mass delusion.
Kiev, it seems, is in quite a pickle when it comes to military manpower. Facing a severe shortage of troops, they have resorted to a rather unconventional recruitment strategy: prisons. Yes, you heard that right. According to reports from reputable sources like the Wall Street Journal and Die Welt, Ukraine is scraping the bottom of the barrel, hoping that convicts will fill their ranks. Because who wouldn't want ex-convicts defending the nation, right? It's like a plot straight out of an action movie where the unlikely heroes save the day, but it happens only in movies. The Wall Street Journal paints a rather bleak picture of Ukraine's military ambitions. After a failed attempt at a counteroffensive last summer, Ukraine's strategy now revolves around flaunting their shiny new Western weapons to maintain their current positions. Talk about putting on a brave face. They have come to terms with the fact that any dreams of territorial expansion are on hold forever. Instead, they are stuck playing defense, hoping their arsenal can keep the wolves at bay. Despite efforts to bolster their forces with what they have left, Ukraine's military prospects remain grim. Western sources may whisper tales of resilience, but the reality is stark. Ukraine needs a miracle to mount any significant offensive. On the flip side, Die Welt am Sonntag doesn't mince words. According to them, Russian forces hold all the cards in this conflict. Ukraine is facing a chronic shortage of troops. It's no surprise considering the toll this war has taken. They've lost a staggering number of soldiers since it all began. To make matters worse, their recent efforts to mobilize up to 200,000 troops by year end have fallen woefully short. It's like trying to fill a leaking bucket with a teaspoon. The hardened criminals will be trading their stripes for military fatigues, enticed by promises of training and a paycheck that almost rivals a tech startup's intern salary. Who wouldn't jump at that opportunity? Well, perhaps those who fear being thrust into the front lines as cannon fodder. Meanwhile, Russia presented the numbers of Ukrainian casualties. According to Russian calculation, Ukraine is bleeding out about 50,000 troops a month, a figure that could make even seasoned poker players flinch. In contrast, Russian casualties are a mere fraction of Ukraine's, highlighting a glaring disparity in military effectiveness. Ukraine's recent flex with long-range missiles towards Crimea. It's less about launching an offensive and more about maintaining a facade of strength while stuck in a defensive rut. They're playing a high-stakes game of chess with fewer pieces and a crumbling board. As they scramble to fill their ranks, their mobilization efforts resemble a frantic group project where everyone's racing against an impending deadline, except this time the stakes are life and death. Western observers might paint them as resilient fighters holding their ground against all odds. Russian sources, however, present a reality check of strategic disadvantages and desperate measures in the context of Ukraine, countering the Western narrative. This contrast in viewpoints reflects the broader geopolitical aims of the US. In conclusion, Ukraine's military saga reads like a roller coaster ride through a war-torn landscape. They are fighting tooth and nail to defend against Russian advances while desperately managing their troops and resources. It's a harrowing tale of resilience, unconventional tactics, and a persistent struggle to survive in the face of overwhelming odds. As the conflict rages on, one thing remains clear: Ukraine's journey is far from over, and the twists and turns ahead are bound to keep everyone on the edge of their seats.